So, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's my pleasure and great honor to host today on the weekly Felnut call the philosopher, writer, a tireless activist for human rights, the one I consider as my friend and as one of my teachers, Mr. Bernard-Henri Lévy. As young activist of the French Union of Jewish Students, I have the privilege to meet him 40 years ago. And since then, I can say that we have never left each other. At the time, he was already an influential philosopher and a successful writer. I followed and supported all his fights, and he deeply inspired my activist journey against anti-Semitism, racism, for the defense of Zionism in Israel, against Islamism and all forms of extremism, in the name of universalism, which is the mark and the honor of the Jewish people. Born with the state of Israel in 1948, at 20, like many young people of his generation, he wants to change the world by shaking up the established order. Rather than joining Cuba, like many, he goes to Bangladesh. Rather than allowing himself to be seduced by totalitarian ideology, as many, he left his mark by criticizing dictatorship and particularly communism. Neither a warrior nor a pacifist. He is the knight of modern times who defend the notion of just war when absolutely necessary. Bernard-Henri Lévy is a fighter. His work is his weapon. It testifies from him, and I am not afraid to say that he is one of the greatest and most influential intellectuals in the world. His latest book, here it is, has just been published, On the Road of Men Without Name. I hope the translation is good, Bernard. He will surely tell us a few words about it, and we will have the opportunity to invite him again to present it to us in a few weeks, and we will be aware of that for sure. But today, it is about the Sarah Halimi case. We will be discussing this infamous anti-Semitic and Islamist murder, which is also a deadly attack on French values. Since the early 2000s, France has been living in an unprecedented crisis since the Second World War. And for now, 10 years under the threat of Islamists and terrorists. So I would like, my dear Bernard, to ask you the first question, and then many others will follow through our friends from all over countries in Europe and in the world. And my first question will be, what does this Sarah Halimi affair tell us about the state of France and perhaps also of the world, as this crisis is global? Bernard, you have the floor. And thank you again very much for being with us today. You have to unmute yourself, Bernard. You have to unmute yourself. Your microphone is not open. Your microphone is not open. You have to unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Is
Wonderful.
it okay?
It's okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
Even wonderful. So that the best. No, what the Sarah Halimi case tells about France is not a happy story at all. It tells about two things. Number one, the dreadly and dramatic and tragic situation of anti-Semitism in France. Anti-Semitism exists, is on the rise, and kills in France, number one. Number two, tells about us about what I often call the culture of excuse, the culture of excuse, the habit to reduce anti-Semitism to social causes, to misery, to psychiatric problems whatsoever. We thought that this tendency was limited to sociological circles, maybe to a few journalists, we discover that this tendency to reduce anti-Semitic murder to psychology and sociology exists also at the top of the French justice. We have judges today in France, high judges, the highest possible authorities in justice, who are contaminated by this plague, this illness, mental illness, which is culture of excuse. Anti-Semitism is not really anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism has to be understood, maybe to be excused. Someone who commits the worst anti-Semitic crime may be guilty of it, but not really responsible. This delusion of responsibility, which we thought reserved to some radical leftist groups in some social medias, unhappy in a terrible way, I have to say, with all my sorrow, that it has reached the highest level of the French justice. This is what the Sarah Halimi says to us. After that, I must also say that in front of this, there is great emotion. There has been a great movement of solidarity with the family of Sarah Halimi, with those who mourn Sarah Halimi, coming from all French society, from President Macron to big mayors of big cities, going through MPs, and so on. There has been a sort of reaction of horror of the most vibrant parts of the French civil society to say that this decision of justice is a mere scandal.
Thank you, Bernard, for this first answer. So as I told you, we have a lot of people with us coming from all over Europe, from Israel, and also from the United States, East Coast and West Coast. And I will ask some of our friends to ask a few questions. And then there will be a Q&A with the audience. So you have the possibility to send your question through the chat, or to say with your hand that you want to speak, and Pascaline will give you the floor. So the first question will be asked by Jean-David Benichou, who is the chairman of the board of the French Elnet. Please, Jean-David, you have the floor.
Bonsoir Bernard, c'est un plaisir de vous revoir. It's always good to see you, Bernard. So my question is very simple. Do you think that the law, which is in front of the French Parliament to fight and combat separatism, will be enough? Do you think that separatism is the right word for this situation? And if it is not enough, do you think it could pave the way for Marine Le Pen to access to the presidency, which we absolutely fear, all of us?
Number one, it's separatism is a good word. Is a good word. There are in France some people who separate themselves from the French Republic by saying that the law of faith and of God is higher than the civil law. By doing that, they separate themselves. They camp in a sort of parallel society, and the word separatism is a good one. The law against separatism is a good law, for sure. We'll see how it is formulated at the end of the process, but it is a good law. It has to be supported, and it's good news that President Macron dared to support this law and to engage his party in supporting it. It's a good thing, and it's a good thing because it gives the real name to the thing. It is not only a difference of culture. It is not only a special part of a neighborhood. it is a real way of declaring war to the whole French Republic by creating these separated areas. So it's fair and it's good news to make that clear. Would it have been enough to declare the guiltiness of the criminal Traoré? No. No. The law against separatism would have changed nothing to the decision of the judges to say that Traoré is guilty but not responsible. This is another matter. And this is another law which has to be written. And by the way, it's not what is the end of the world is the death of Sarah Halimi. But the fact that a law has to be rewritten is not the end of the world. It's regular in democracies. In democracies, laws are always unfinished. They have always to be embittered. What is the pure scandal is that Dr. Halimi will never be revived, of course, neither by a law, nor by a punishment, nor by a revision of the trial, alas. But there should be a new law separating, preventing, to take shelter behind the fact that one cannot judge a fool, a crazy man, in order to make innocent the killer of Sarah Halimi. This law has to be written. There is an equivocity in the French law which has to be erased. By the way, I also think that even in the current state of the French law, the French judges could have said the right, could have been righteous, could have condemned Traoré, could have said that Traoré was not full, but had taken some hashish, that therefore he did put himself in this state of provisional, bizarre state of mind, and that therefore he was guilty. Even in the current state of the law, if the judges had not had a bias, if they did not have shared this low-level ideology who says that anti-Semitism is just a product of a certain sociology, a certain psychology, a certain state of society, they would have condemned Kobili Traoré. And it is a scandal that even in the state of the law, which is now available, they did not do that. If we don't rewrite this law, if by any misfortune the law against separatism was blocked, I don't know, then it would be a serious concern for the future of French democracy on the ground which you just mentioned, which is the next presidential race. It would give to Marine Le Pen and her party a field of maneuver, an argument which honestly we don't need, which French society does not need. So hopefully these two laws, separatism and the law allowing to condemn, which have allowed to condemn automatically Traoré or easily Traoré, it's never automatic, yet there is always a contradictory debate. If these laws go through, Marine Le Pen will not have these easy arguments.
Thank you very much.
Merci Jean-David. Thank you, Jean-David. Thank you, Bernard. Our third question will come from Poland, and I will ask Piotr Purta, the CEO of the Foundation of Preservation of Jewish Heritage and a member of Elnet Poland Advisory Board, to ask this question. Please, Piotr, you have the floor.
Thank you. I would like, first of all, to express my appreciation for today's topic, because I believe this is a very timely discussion. And of course, it is relevant not only to France, but also to other countries in Europe. And I would like to ask, can France really protect the largest Jewish community in Europe against the rising tide of anti-Semitism? And what should Europe do in this matter? I believe that this is something that is a general issue, and if you could please give us your thoughts in a specific way concerning France, but also in general for Europe. Thank you.
France and Europe do the biggest part of the job already on this regard. In the French institutions, in the French elite, when anti-Semitism is clear, crystal clear, there is no indulgence for it. Nothing comparable to what happened in the 30s of the last century, where anti-Semitism was like a poison in the veins and in the blood of the whole society. Today it's not the case. France does the job except one thing, and which might be the most important of all. The one thing which France does not do so well, and I'm sure it's the same in Poland and in various parts of Europe, is to have the courage to name, to recognize, and when it is recognized, to give its correct name to anti-Semitism, to name the evil. In this affair of Sarah Halimi, the first scandal before the decision of the judges not to condemn and to declare irresponsible, before that, there was another scandal. It did take months and months before the previous judge accepting to give the name of anti-Semitic to this crime. We have here a Jewish lady, observant, pious, honoring her God. We have in front of her a radical Muslim deciding to kill her by shouting Allahu Akbar, declaring, confessing that one of the things which made him crazy was to see the 7 candles in her living room. So it was a pure anti-Semitic act. It was a pure anti-Semitic murder. It took months and months for the judges in France, and for a part of the press, and for a part of the public opinion, even enlightened, to admit it. So the part of the job which is not yet done is to give the name, to name the thing. It is true in this affair, in this Sarah Halimi case. It is true when we have anti-Semitism in disguise of anti-Zionism, when anti-Zionism is the nickname of anti-Semitism. We have still a lot of people in France who discuss, who argue, who say, come on, wait, we have to see carefully. Maybe it is anti-Semitism, maybe it is not. You know, this problem of nomination, this ideological battle, this battle for ID, might be the one which we Jews, or friends of the Jews, or friends of democracy, did not win yet. The battle to put shame on anti-Semitism when it is declared as such, more or less the job is done in France. You will find very, very few representatives of French political or civil society saying that anti-Semitism is good. This has more or less disappeared. But the trick is that you have a lot of people who, when anti-Semitism is here, when it is shining and making us nearly blind by its evidence, you have a lot of people who say, no, not true, we have to see, we have to examine, we have to discuss. This battle is still to be won.
Thank you, Piotr, and thank you, Bernard. Let's turn now to Brussels with our director for European institution and NATO, Matti Schulzer. You have the floor, my friend.
Bonsoir, Monsieur Henri Lévy. It's a great pleasure to be able to ask you a question from our office in Brussels, where we engage on a daily basis with members of the European Parliament, policymakers at the European Commission, and other policymakers from the Council. What I would like to ask you is the following. There seems to be an awakening in France regarding issues of Islamism and terrorist threats before other countries with similar issues, such as, for example, Belgium, where Brussels is located. In some way, you could say it is a sort of French Revolution. Do you believe that Macron's new policy on separatism will spill over to other European countries? Thank you.
I hope so. Yeah, the policy of Macron, if I heard you well, because I had some problems of sound. If I heard you well, I think that Macron was bold by formulating this proposal of law. I think that he had the virtue of not, as we say in French, not turning around the cup, you know, going right to the point. He went right to the point, and I hope that this might be a lesson for the rest of Europe. Yeah, we have to be very clear on the fact that Europe is a ground of hospitality, that we are proud to host some foreigners. This is in our DNA. At the end of the day, Europe in the Greek mythology was a little princess coming from Lebanon, crossing the sea and arriving in Europe. So there is no problem with that. The problem is that if you come, if you ask for hospitality of a home, you have to respect the rules. And when the rules are democracy, which is the case in most of Europe, when the rules are secularism, when the rules are equality between women and men, when the rules is the fact that the civil law, imperfect, always possible to modify, is higher than the God's law, you have to respect that. If you don't respect it, then you separate. This, which is the spirit of the proposal of Macron, deserves to be enlarged to as many European countries as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matti. Thank you, Bernard. So now we go to Berlin for the next question that will be asked by our director, Karsten Oven. Mr. Oven, you have the floor.
Thank you, Arié. Bonsoir, Monsieur Lévy. C'est un plaisir de vous parler. It's my pleasure speaking with you tonight and listening to your words. So Germany is rightly at the forefront for the fight against anti-Semitism, and our team here in Berlin is supporting policymakers on federal and on state level to do exactly this very important job. And Germany clearly calls anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. It was one of the first European countries to adopt the IRA definition, and even went so far as to consider BDS as anti-Semitic by a resolution of the German Bundestag. However, some European countries adopted the IRA definition only recently, or haven't even adopted it yet. So how do you explain that? Why are some European countries having difficulties with this important definition? And maybe, if I may add, what could ELNET also do to support policymakers to adopt this, the IRA definition?
About BDS, there is a task, a duty of pedagogy, which has not been fulfilled yet by enough people. It was fulfilled by brave voices in Germany, not enough in other countries of Europe. We have to say that the partisans of, we have to explain that the partisans of BDS are true racists, that they are not in favor of peace at all, that they are not even favorable to the two-state solution in Israel. They are favorable to one-state solution, which is a Palestinian state pushing the Jews, God forbids, to the sea. There is a whole propaganda, a whole a cloud of lies around this BDS movement, which should be blown up, and which is not yet enough. And this is again a task to do.
Thank you, Carsten. Bernard, just before going to the audience, I would like to ask you a kind of tricky question. How can we navigate between the extreme left, between the anti-Zionist and the extreme right in the other side, to fight first, for sure, against anti-Semitism, but not only. We see that today the threat is against all the democracy, all the population in France, not just against the Jews. So how do you see this fight when, if we fight against the extreme left in a certain way, we are pushing the extreme right, and if we fight the extreme right, we could forget to fight the extreme left. That's sometimes what we see among the policymakers. It's difficult for them to understand that both fight has to be fought. What do you think about that? How do you see the problem? What is your take?
I feel that this is precisely what has to be done. I feel that this is precisely what I try to do myself since the beginning of my public life. I think that you can absolutely combat the one with combating the other at the same time. To count till 2, 1, 2 is not such a difficult way of thinking for a normal mind, and we have to get rid of this suicidal behavior who says one at a time, let's take care of extreme right first. And no, it was a big mistake of our of your grandfathers and maybe of my grandfather to not to be able to combat Stalin and Hitler at the same time. The only way to not to make the 20th century a hell would have been to be brave enough, clever enough, articulated enough, but brave, more important, to combat both. This is precisely what has to be done. And believe me, if you are for a moment, if you feel to be in bad company for 5 minutes, it never lasts so long. I spent all my life, when I combat the extreme left, there is 1 second where it can look like as if I was close to the right, but after 1 second, the misunderstanding is diluted, and people understand very well. No, we have to do both, and we have to be aware also, and everybody is aware, but we have to stress the following point. The Jews, when they are victims of anti-Semitism, alas, they are in a way the first line of the battle. Look at the argument of the judge about Sarah Halimi. Let's come back 1 minute to that. The French judge who said, he took some hashish, maybe an excess of hashish, then for that, he is not responsible. What will happen if another Traoré takes some hashish, some cocaine, and kills a cop, a policeman, kills an MP, a deputy, kills whoever? This can be can happen so many times. It's a terrible example. It's a terrible, as we say, jurisprudence. There is today a jurisprudence in France. If we don't change the law very, very soon, the jurisprudence, the habit, the law of habit is that when you take hashish to give yourself courage, to disinhibit yourself, you may kill an old lady, a young policeman, a child, whoever, without being responsible of it. This is a terrible precedent for the whole society. The judges who took this decision took a terrible risk for the whole society. And it has never been so crystal clear that the Jews are, alas, at the vanguard and in the front line of the battle for them against barbarity and for democracy. I would love not to be in the vanguard. I would love not to be in front line. This is a terrible role. It's a very heavy burden on our shoulders. But it's that this is the reality, my friend.
Yes, thank you very much, Bernard. I will turn now to Pascaline for the question of the audience, and if we have time, just after, I will have some other question to ask you. So Pascaline, what about the question coming from the audience?
Sure. Thank you, Aryeh, and thank you, Mr. Henri Lévy. We have many questions from the audience, so I don't think you have the chance to ask more questions, Aryeh. The first question will go to Nathalie Gutmann, who's a friend of Elnet France, and she has a question for Mr. Henri Lévy. And perhaps, you know, Nathalie, when you ask your question, please make sure to address it to Mr. Henri Lévy, and perhaps Aryeh can comment on Elnet France. Please go ahead.
Bonsoir. Thank you for taking my question. So I'm participating from Los Angeles, California. And, you know, we've been watching the situation unfold and are very alarmed with what's happening. And with that, my question is, has Elnet, particularly Paris Elnet and others in the French Jewish community, had any success in identifying those in key government positions who are supportive of French Jewry and are equally outraged by the Halimi verdict, so that we could perhaps address some of these systemic problems from the inside out and work to eliminate the rising tide of, I think, what's coming to be known as intellectual anti-Semitism, which is not only permeating France's judicial system, but in this case, France's judicial system.
So what is the question? We will not eliminate anyone. We can combat. We can put shame on the people you evoke and you mention, and we should be more and more numerous to build this hall of shame where there are some people of extreme left and extreme right who give excuses, who give legitimacy to anti-Semitism, especially when it gives itself another name. This is the battle for shame, a battle against shame, by putting shame on those people. And the approach of the presidential race will be, of course, a special moment for that. But I just want to tell you one thing. I read the American press from time to time. I read the New York Times and other American outlets. It is not true that the French government, the French elite are wholly, completely corrupted by anti-Semitism. This is not the reality. And we have had in the past some periods in our history when it was, on this regard, much worse. In the 30s, 1 century ago, when there was we had a big event in France, which was Front Populaire, when the French Joe Biden of this time came to power. His name was Léon Blum, okay? And there was our Congress who held his president. One of the two candidates gathering a huge number of voices, of votes for him, was a declared antisemitic, Mr. Darquier de Pellepoix. He had maybe 150 votes for him to become the speaker of our Congress. In 1936, in the time of the Dreyfus affair in France, we had half of France, which was composed by vocal haters of Jews. We had some newspapers shared and sold in the streets of Paris with title like The Anti-Semitic. This today, thanks God, thanks the generation of our fathers who did fight Nazism, thanks America, who liberated France from fascism, thanks to a lot of forces, it is not the same situation. We have a very low key anti-Semitism everywhere. We have it in street demonstrations. We have it in French campuses, universities. We have it sometimes in medias, but it is not a legitimate current of the high-level elites, and the governments holds firm. The mayors of the big French cities are really clear on that. For example,
I could add that. This point. Thank you, Bernard. And clearly, to go on your side, Bernard, I could add that unfortunately, the good news of this terrible affair, Sarah Halimi murder, is that 100% of the government, most of the members of the parliament and in the Senate, stood up to support the Jewish community, to support and to fight and to voice up against anti-Semitism and to express their solidarity with the Jews and with all the society. Clearly, we in this affair, we had a problem with the justice. We have a problem with the extreme left that don't understand exactly what's going on and are always considering the Muslims and the Islamism like the victims of racism, and they have to be excused, the culture of excuse that Bernard-Henri Lévy talk about. So the real good news, and I'm working in this activity, I'm an activist for many years, as I said. If you would ask me 20 years ago or 30 years ago, how many friends of Israel, or how many people are supporting really the Jewish community, the Jewish people, I could tell perhaps 5, perhaps 10. Today, I could give you the name of 300 in the National Assembly, in the Senate, in the government, in the most important local authorities. Clearly, we are not in the 20s. We are in a situation where the people understand that what is harming the Jews is harming all the country, of the nation, of the world, and that we have to fight together.
Thank you very much. Next question goes to Eli Aliashmerni. Please go ahead, Eli, and ask your question.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It seems to me that the ruling gives carte blanche to those who hate Jews to keep doing this because they can get away. What specific plans do the European Jews, the French Jews have, and what does Elnet have to fight this, to bring about changes? Thank you.
I will have to leave, Ari, unfortunately. As you know, I had Aryeh Ben-Shimon. I had 40 minutes. I will have to leave. So do I leave you? Do I let you reply to that, or?
No, please reply in few words, and then we will give us 10 more minutes, and we will conclude.
Okay. So what is the question, sir? Again, can you?
What specific plans do you have to combat this terrible ruling by the judge?
Words, laws, public opinion, election, preventing the accomplices of anti-Semitism to get power, extreme left and extreme right. We have to be strong. We have to wage the battle. We have to prevent ourselves from the defeatist temptation, which I feel sometimes. Sometimes when I see another dead, Mrs. Halimi after Mrs. Knoll and Mrs. Knoll after Ilan Halimi, sometimes I'm fed up, I'm despaired. I say, but this will go on and on for how long? Of course, I have this feeling. But in spite of that, I really feel that the battle, we can win the battle. We can do it. We can live it. France and Europe is composed of beautiful countries which tried to eliminate us, the generation of our fathers and of our grandfathers. Thanks God they did not do completely. And they know today what they owe to the Jews. They know how the Jewish heritage is crucial, vital. It is at the core of the spirit of Europe. France will not be France without the Jews. Europe will not be Europe without the Jews. We are not just a part of Europe. We are part of the beating heart of Europe. And more Europeans know it. And those who don't know it, we have to remind. We have to explain. And the worst thing for me would be to leave the battlefield and to leave it to these stupid, crazy, illiterate gangsters of the new anti-Semitism of today. I will not leave them. Beautiful France, beautiful Prague, Czechia. I will not leave them. Beautiful Italy. All our European countries, we gave so much to them. We were so strongly part of the building, even of the Republican pattern of most of the European countries. Are we going to leave all this wealth, this spiritual wealth, to this gang of stupid monsters? No. It should be too bad. It should be a shame. It would be so sad. So we have to combat, and I really believe that we will prevail. Understand me well, prevail does not mean to eradicate anti-Semitism. It will never be eradicated for reasons which you discussed often at Elnet. It will not be eradicated, but it can be resisted. It can be fought. We can build in front of the anti-Semitics a strong wall of words, of spirits, and of strength. And today, one of the new elements of the situation is that Jews dare to be strong. They dare to be strong, mentally strong, intellectually strong, politically strong, militarily strong when they are in Israel. They dare to be strong. And this way of daring to assert a calm force, a wise force, of course, change a lot of the situation. And it creates a balance of forces which will be more and more favorable to us and to our friends if we don't give up.
So thank you, Elie. Pascal, as Bernard-Henri Lévy will have to leave in 5 minutes from now. So please try to deal with a cocktail of your best question to give him the opportunity to respond and to conclude.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go to Yossi Lemkovitz for a quick question on the situation in Israel. Yossi, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Sorry to have a question outside of today's topic, but I would like to know your take on the situation in Israel, the escalation of tension in Jerusalem, the launching of rockets from Gaza. I just saw that the Islamic Jihad terror group announced that it will even launch harder and attacks on Israel tonight. So what's your take? Thank you so much.
I did not hear that. I have not the information. If they commit this mistake, they are even more crazy than I thought. It will be a terrible mistake for them. It can harm us, of course. A rain of rockets. I was in Sderot so many times, in some of the hottest moments of the history of Sderot in the last 30 years. I was there, so I know what it means. What it means for the families of Sderot, for the children of Sderot. It's terrible trauma, but it would be a big mistake by Jihad Islamic or Hamas to go in such an escalation. I hope it will not be confirmed. I don't know. I did not hear this news. I don't know.
Okay.
But if it had to happen, personally, I don't know what it might change nothing, but I would do what I ever did, what I always did in all my life, and what I did during the 2 wars of defense of Israel against the attacks of Gaza. I will be with all my heart and all my strength at the side of Israel, as I was always been since 1967.
Thank you.
So
Thank you very much, Bernard, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, my friends of Elnet, and see you next time as I promised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for having been with us today. I know you have a very important schedule. You are promoting your book, and you are speaking to all the magazine, journalists, the media, and it's amazing. And I should say that, as I say every time, if you like Bernard-Henri Lévy when he speaks, you will love him when he writes, because you are a fantastic writer. And so I hope that we will have this very good opportunity to meet you and to present your next book in the next day. Thank you very much, Bernard, for being with us.